Hello everybody, I'm Glen Durrant and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Well, hello there, and a very warm welcome to my living room. Welcome to the Bounce Out, episode number 6, I believe, of the Bounce Out. This is the 6th time that we are recording this show, how would you call it, remotely, due to the coronavirus lockdown. Anyway, more about that in a moment. Let me introduce you to I'm being completely distracted by Neil Connor messing around with graphics on the screen, trying to get his Liverpool logo up. But never mind, I'll try and concentrate and move on. Josh Gorton, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Josh.
How are you, John?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Much the same as last time, really. Just trying to plod on. It's difficult for everyone at the moment, but that's where we are.
Well, you say just trying to plod on, Josh. I think your website and your Twitter stream has been probably the busiest I've seen it in the last month. You've been trying to keep yourself busy and still provide plenty of content.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've had some good interaction. We had the Fantasy World Championship, which we mentioned on the last Bounce Out, which was a real success. And I've been trying to do quite a few articles that have engaged people, but opinion articles about maybe top 10 of all time. And more recently, I did an article on some of the top 10 or the greatest comebacks in darting history. So it's something that provides a lot of talking points. It engages people, and yeah, it's good fun, and it occupies me as well because it gives me a purpose and something to do.
Good. Yeah, important to keep busy. Talking of busy, the busiest man I know. He also joins us this evening on our Zoom meeting. A warm welcome to Statsman Neil Connor. Good evening, Neil.
Good evening.
How are you, mate? How's things? Work eased up yet, or still pretty bad?
It's okay. I had 4 days off over the Easter weekend, so feeling refreshed. And back at work today. So it is busy, but as I said before, we could be in a far worse situation than we are at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. As I look at my watch, it says April the 14th. Neil, how much longer are we going to be in this semi-lockdown, do you think?
May the 7th is the date that
Really?
that I've heard. Yeah.
Where have you heard that from?
I don't know.
Have you got
I think
inside
I was discussing
information?
it on a call earlier with someone. So I spoke to a lot of people today in India and France and Poland, and they all seem to think that around May the 7th, restrictions will start to be eased across the globe. So from a France perspective, it looks like they're doing 2 weeks of planning as to how they'll release the lockdown, and then they'll have 2 weeks to discuss with unions and businesses as to how they're going to do it. So they seem fairly confident that they'll be putting a plan in place. So I suspect we will follow at some point.
Yeah, Josh, it is interesting what the criteria is going to be for the slow release of us all back into mainstream public.
Yeah, I would imagine those who are most vulnerable in terms of age or underlying conditions will probably have to still be shielded. I think they mentioned 12 weeks. So, but you look at Spain and Italy, who are ahead of us, probably about 2 weeks ahead of us. They're now just starting to see a plateau of the cases now, and they're starting to kind of just begin the early stages of introducing people back into the everyday world. So I think Neil could be right. It's all guesswork at the moment, really, but hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later we can return to some sort of normality.
The biggest question, Josh, when are we going to get some live televised darts back on our screen? That's what everyone wants to know.
Well, who knows? We've seen plenty of darts on our screens in terms of darts at home, and we saw the charity match between Barney and Taylor. I personally hope the World Match Play towards the end of July. I think that's a realistic aim. The question is, will it be behind closed doors? Because who knows? I mean, we don't know. I hope the World Match Play goes ahead, but whether it will be in front of a full crowd at the Winter Gardens, it remains to be seen.
And that's what I've been thinking about with all sports, really, is the talk about behind closed doors, but I'm sure they'll start to look at ways that they could maybe do social distancing, but have some element of crowd participation. It'd be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. There has been some online darts taking place. There was a particularly scrappy match that I commentated on a few days ago, but more on the Josh Gorton v Neil Connor NHS charity match a little bit later. Right, Josh, let's get to it then. Let's see what we have got to discuss. As I mentioned, you have been quite busy on your website producing content. You've also been very busy on the telephone, and you managed to secure a guest for us today, haven't you?
I have indeed, and it's a big one, John. It's Premier League leader and three-time world champion Glen Durrant.
Good. What sort of spirits was Glen in at the moment on lockdown?
Yeah, he was in good spirits. I mean, he was quite philosophical. He admitted it was disappointing. I mean, obviously the circumstances for everyone are horrendous, but particularly for Glen, it's disappointing because he'd made such a strong start to the season. As we mentioned, for the Premier League on his debut campaign, he was looking forward to playing in Newcastle in front of plenty of home fans. But as he mentioned in the interview, really, there's a lot of people a lot worse off, and at the moment it's just about the safety and welfare of everyone. So he was in good spirits. He was really interested on how he's adjusted to life in the PDC. It's been 15 months for him now. Also spoke very well about the BDO because we know their plight at the moment, and Glen was a very proud BDO man.
Josh is Dartistry, Josh is Dartistry, Josh is Dartistry, Josh is Dartistry.
Well, guys, I'm delighted here to be joined by a three-time BDO world champion and current Premier League leader, Glen Durrant. Glen, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem at all. You're welcome.
It's a very strange period for everyone at the moment, Glen. I mean, you're used to being on the road regularly with the Pro Tour and now the Premier League. So how are you coping with this enforced break, and how are you keeping yourself occupied?
I'll tell you what, I won't ever moan again about stuck in a German hotel because I've lost in the first round of the Euro, so that's for sure. Yeah, like I said, it's a word that's getting used a lot, like unprecedented circumstances. I'm trying to get the positives out of what's happening, and spending plenty of time at home with the wife is really good. I've doing mundane things like doing me tax and getting all that sorted out. I've decluttered, but right in the middle of all that, I'm still practicing hard, and if they said we can go again tomorrow, I will be ready, and that's sort of my mentality at the moment.
Have you adapted your practice routine at all? Because obviously you want to remain fresh and ready, but you've got no real idea of when the competitive darts will return.
That's a good question, and I'll answer that in two sections. Number one is it's given me the opportunity to work with target darts. There has been a concern there that my finishing, my combination finishing is up there with the very best in the world, but I'm lagging so far behind on the 180 scores. It was a good opportunity to use a brand new dart, exactly the same, but a thinner version of the dart that I've been using with target the past 12 months, and quite simply it didn't work. I might have been getting a few more 180s, but it just didn't feel right in the finger, and I might have been getting more 180s, but my finishing then was not as good. So I've come to realise now, I believe in this period, that it's about you as a person, how you handle a situation, and the darts are fine. So I've been working on a few little tweaks. I was going to spend some time with Wayne Marble, just have a little look at the right-hand side of the board for me, the double 10 in particular, which has hurt me over the years. So it's given me a couple of extra hours now to work around that, and Wayne's given me a couple of things to suggest. But you can only really answer that when you're under them conditions. And the second part of that, question is that I've stayed away from the advertised darts, the number one app, the dart at home, obviously with the PDC, etc. Because I'm quite an old-fashioned player. I like to practice on my own. I play the invisible man. There's no secret to my practice routine. That I just play games of winning 15 and under, 14 and under, etc., etc. So it's given me an opportunity now to this sort of stage into the pandemic where I'm going to now start playing some darts online and playing against other people, and hopefully that will keep me sharp, ready for when we go again.
The circumstances of this break are obviously horrendous globally, but for players struggling, as you mentioned, it does give them the chance to regroup. But for you, it must be more frustrating given how well you've started in your debut Premier League season.
Absolutely. I mean, pretty selfishly, the Newcastle gig and Rotterdam, where I was with Michael and Gerwin, they were the two games that as soon as I realised I was in the Premier League, they were the two games. But look, I'm healthy, I'm fit, and that's more important. And you see what the bigger picture is within a few days of what's going on. I'm just a dart player, and like I said, I'm following all the government guidelines, and I'm fitting well, and that's more important than worrying about my darts career.
And you're only 6 games into your debut Premier League season, Glenn, but having played on the biggest stages in world darts like the Lakeside, Alexandra Palace, the Winter Gardens, how does the atmosphere and the buzz compare playing in the Premier League venues?
Yeah, another great question. The Lakeside final would always take some beating. Just the build up to the day, there's stories where I just couldn't put any calories into me. I was that nervous going into my first Lakeside final. There's a real good story behind that one. Then you're playing on the, Ali Pally is just an absolute sea of noise. The Premier League is just another different level. I thoroughly enjoyed Ireland, even though I sort of got beat there. The Exeter's different. It really is a cowshed that you're playing in. So it's just you realise that you're part of the elite. I've talked about the sort of the back room a little bit in some interviews recently, and when you just sat next to Michael and Peter Wright and Gary Anderson walks in, it's a realisation that coming over to the PDC was the best decision. And the Premier League is everything I thought it would be and more. And
obviously you crossed the divide last year as a 3-time BDO World Champion, so your pedigree was undeniable. But 15 months or so into your PDC career now, how pleased are you with how it's gone so far?
Absolutely delighted. What people don't realise is that when you win a Lakeside, you get ridiculed, you get laughed at, because I remember one particular one, and I had a lot of hate, a lot of nasty messages, but the one that I always resonated with me is he said, Glen Durrant wins a Lakeside Championship. I reckon if I went down the boozer on a Friday night and had an hour a week, I could be Lakeside champion. Now, of all the hundreds and thousands of emails I read, for some reason that was the one that always stuck in my mind. So I knew to get them 3 Lakeside sort of respected, if that's the right word, I had to go over to the PDC, and I put my reputation on the line. If I'd have bombed, if I'd have had a nightmare first year, then what would them Lakeside Championships have meant to me? So it's been a real roller coaster, and I've loved every second.
I remember you in some interviews before saying about the kind of expectation at Q School. You said the amount of people watching your board. So the fact that when you won your tour card, I think you won a Pro Tour event in your second weekend. So how important was that for you to hit the ground running and really prove that point?
Yeah, the first weekend I got to a final. So,
yeah.
I remember walking into, I think it was Wigan. I think it was Wigan. I remember walking. It was a long walk for where our management team sit. And you just felt like that all the eyes were on me. And I lost first round to Alan Tavern, and that was a long night. You're just thinking, what have I done? I could have lived happily ever after in this sort of the BDO and just carried on working. That was the mentality at that point. But, to reach a final the next and win one week too, the scrutiny and the eyes are off. I felt very much part of the PDC family very, very quickly.
And last year saw you give up your job as a housing manager. You'd done that for 30 years to focus now on your darts full time. How big a transition has that been for you?
Huge, massive. I missed housing definitely for the first month. Just the second day I got up and put my trousers and shirt on to go to work. I was in such a routine that I missed it, but I couldn't imagine going back to that life right now. I love the life of a professional darts player, and this unprecedented time it does give you a lot of self-reflection, and I feel very lucky to that my hobby is my job, and I wouldn't have it any other way now. But I do think that work ethic that I've worked in 30 years, and having to maybe do 2 jobs, which I used to do to make ends meet, is all part of making sure that in times like this, I do get on that dartboard for a couple of hours a day. And, I've never ever slacked. I've always worked hard in practice, and I've always said that I don't think I was blessed with a lot of natural talent, but I've worked hard in the game. And like I said, I do believe that I've got a lot of bottle, and my combination finishing right now is, like I say, when I need a finish of 127 or less, I feel like it's going to go in, and that's a nice feeling to have right now.
You referenced earlier, Glenn, how disappointing it was that the Newcastle Premier League event had been postponed, but it's been rescheduled for October. The PDC have announced the rescheduled calendar. So how excited are you to be playing Peter Wright in a later on in the year in front of so many home fans supporting you?
Well, I don't know if it'll be Peter Wright now, because I'm guessing now that Birmingham is the next Premier League, and I'm guessing I'll be playing Peter Wright there now. So that's what I'm guessing. But I've just literally, prior to your interview now, just listened to Barry Hearn on Burton DeWitt's podcast, and there's still lots of things that could go. How we just are playing darts from the home. I watched on last week on the PDC channel, and a little bit on Modus Icon of Darts I've been watching. Then there's potentially playing in front of closed doors, potentially playing in front of reduced crowds. And then obviously the final option is getting back to normality in front of huge crowds and all that. So I don't know what the Premier League's going to hold for us now. Is it going to be behind closed doors? Is there only going to be 50 people there? Or are we going to get back to what we hope and pray of playing in front of 10,000 every week? So it will be where it will be. And my mentality right now is just keep focused on the practice and keep working hard, and what will be, will be.
A lot of events have obviously had to be postponed, so when the darts does get underway, it's likely to be quite a congested calendar in the second half of the season. So for you, having obviously been in the Premier League as well, will it be a case of managing your schedule? Because obviously you want to climb the rankings and break into that top 16, but also want to remain fresh for the big major tournaments.
I'm prepared to be playing 7 days a week. Like I said, just listened to Barry Hearn, and he said he will be playing 7 days a week if needs be. But I'm not 20 or 30 year old now, and I know when I've played darts all day, my body will tell me the next morning. So I've got to manage more of that rather than the time. I'm not working now. I'm happy to be away 7 days to make sure I fulfil my dreams and pay the bills, etc. More managing my body is something I was doing so well just prior to this pandemic. I was losing a bit of weight, and I was just shy of the stone and feeling really good in myself. And I've let myself down a little bit this past month, but me and the wife are ready to start again now, and get that sorted out, because to be a full-time darts player now, it's blistering heat. Even I was shocked even at Ali Pally in the middle of winter how hot that stage was. And you just have to watch my game against Van Gerwen. It was boiling up there. So you do need to be fit to be a dart player in this modern game.
Absolutely. I just want to get your thoughts, Glenn, on the BDO. You were a very proud BDO champion. You represented them superbly well. You've still got some very good friends, I know, in that organisation. So it must be tough to see their current plight at the moment.
Yeah, it's very sad. I tell you what I have done. I thought if Des hadn't have relaxed that ruling of the champion not being able to go to the Q School, where would I be today? So I've got a lot to thank Des for that decision, and someone was watching down on me, because I won £300,000 in Lakeside wins alone the past 3 years, and to see the plight that they're going through now, and it's really tough, because I am a proud BDO man. I've never said a bad word against them, and I believed in Des. Honestly, there was, when I won that third Lakeside title, you go to a champions meal, and he got on the mic and was just saying, if there's 1% chance of this conversation keeping going here, and part of me just like, should I stay? Should I be a 4-time, 5-time Lakeside champion? But I within moments of listening to that, I knew that I'd given up. I played a World Masters final against Adam Smith-Neal and didn't want to be there.
Yeah,
there was 27 people in the crowd, and it was just, what am I doing? And so I do think, thank God I left the BDO when I did, and it is really sad, because England darts, it's fantastic, the selfies, the Irelands. I always think that grassroots side of the game is still there. County darts is still flourishing, and my local team Cleveland have never been so happy, never been playing so well. So grassroots darts is really important, and I see no satisfaction that BDO's struggling at the moment, and obviously with Des going now, it needs something. Don't know what it is. I'm not a businessman, but they need a Barry Hearn at the helm, and they need it quickly.
And just finally, Glenn, obviously there is uncertainty about when the darts will resume, but have you set yourself any targets, whether it be breaking into the top 16 or trying to win a PDC major? Because you came very close last year, reaching 3 big semi-finals.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about nobody playing at the moment is people are losing money on a weekly basis, and I'm not.
Yeah.
So I know Chris Dobie wrote, if this pandemic goes any longer, Glen Durrant will be world number 1. I'm climbing. I think I'm up to about 18 at the moment now.
Yeah.
Josh, that's amazing.
Definitely.
It's all them concerns that I had. What if I'm just an all-star run? What if, last year was amazing. My practice routine now is I just wish I could have turned one of them semis into a final. But if you'd have offered me what I had last year and just shy of £3,000 in the first year, I would have snapped your hands off. Some of that money didn't go on my rankings, like the Grand Slams and I think one of the tournament. But amazing. Premier League has just been unbelievable. So that's another ambition fulfilled. So top 16, top 10, and yeah, absolutely. I would love to win a major PDC title, and that's what gets me on that practice board every day.
Well, Glenn, we wish you all the very best with that. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you today, and stay safe and hope to see you back on the circuit very soon.
No, it's a great interview. Thanks for that, Josh. Good question. Bye-bye, mate.
Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry. Josh is Dartistry.
Well, there you go, folks. That is Josh's interview with Glen Durrant. Neil, I'm going to come to you first. As we were listening to that, I've got you on the Zoom meeting, and we had our little chat room open. And you said to me that's one of the best interviews we've ever had on the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Open, frank, and honest from Glen.
Yeah, I think it was the honesty that I really, really enjoyed, and how down to earth Glen obviously is. I think that there was just things in there that really interested me and really, really struck me as the interview went on. So I think the first thing was, again, we've got a reference to Wayne Mardle and maybe having a look at his game.
Yeah, not for the first time. Wayne Mardle's coaching prowess coming to the fore.
So I think this technical coaching, whether it's Wayne Mardle, and I'm sure there'll be other people that come out and also get involved from a coaching perspective. I think it's high on the agenda, and it's clearly the players are now thinking of it. So I think that was one thing that struck me. Related to that, really, was he's very clear what his weaknesses are, and I think we all know that he's a very strong finisher, but doesn't score as heavily as some of the other players. So I think it was refreshing to hear him acknowledge what his weaknesses were. And where he needs to improve. So I think that will stand him in good stead. And the only other point that I wanted to pick up on, Josh, was about the Order of Merit. And it's something that hasn't struck me up until he actually mentioned it. Was so all the tournaments that have been cancelled, players are actually losing their 2-year prize money.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So prize money's dropping off, but because he's only been in it for 15, 16 months, he doesn't have that problem. For another 8 months at least.
Exactly. It's something I think the PDC will look to rectify in the coming months if the lockdown lasts and the competitive tournaments don't continue now for a couple of months, because Gary Anderson, for example, at the match play defending £150,000 prize money, and if he were to lose that, he'd be out the top 16 suddenly, and you've got a whole lot of players, more importantly down the lower end of the rankings, who are fighting to keep their tour cards on the 2-year system. They could potentially lose their tour cards through little fault of their own. So I think they may have to freeze the rankings if this continues for any longer. But as Glenn said, he's probably one of the main benefactors of this, because, as you mentioned, he's not defending anything.
Exactly, and I hadn't thought of that until that point. That was interesting.
Josh, Neil obviously talking about Glen's ability to identify his own faults. The words that stuck with me on that were, saying that he recognises that he doesn't perhaps have the most natural talent and ability in the world, but what he lacks there, he makes up in spirit and bottle and hard work on the practice board.
Absolutely, John. I think Glen is one of the most composed players, one of the most tenacious, and his combination finishing is superb. I think anything in the 70 to about 120 range is lethal. He's almost usurped James Wade as the best combination finisher in the world at the moment, but I think he does put himself down a little bit. He's still an incredible talent. I've seen him on the Pro Tour last year. I think he had, over the entire course of the season, the 5th highest average on the PDC Tour.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about a man who's averaging high 80s, low 90s. He can average 105, 106 with the best of them. He's probably not the biggest scorer, as Neil mentioned, in terms of the maximum count, but he's very good on the 140s and the setup shooting, particularly. When he's around 220, that sort of range, he always seems to find a real big score to leave himself on one of those combination finishes, which he then usually takes out.
And also hugely respectful of the BDO, talked very fondly about his time in the BDO. Gave credit to Des Jacqueline. He's very thankful for the position that he finds himself in today, and wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Des and the BDO. But he did mention that the Premier League, the atmospheres and everything that comes with that is on a completely different level, didn't he, Josh?
Absolutely. I mean, Glen's played on some of the biggest stages, as I mentioned, in World Darts, but the Premier League, in terms of the atmosphere, it is on a different level. I mean, Glen hasn't been yet to Rotterdam, where he's due to face Michael van Gerwen, or Berlin, but you've got, I think, 8,000, 9,000 in Rotterdam, and I've been lucky enough to go, and the atmosphere is off the scale there, and Berlin, 14,000 people, so it's an absolutely incredible experience for Glen. He seems to be relishing it at the moment, and he's an experienced campaigner. I don't think he's fazed by the atmosphere or the occasion, because he's won some of the biggest titles in World Darts, so that's holding him in good stead. But I think we all wanted to see Glen, compete in the big time. But it's not just a case of just, right, I'm going to leave the BDO now. As he mentioned there, he gave up his job of 30 years, which he loved, by the way. So it's a massive commitment. It's a massive transition, which I think was going to be tough initially, but he's made a very smooth one, and he's now loving life as a professional darts player.
Interesting as well, the use of words that he said. He knew that to give the BDO credibility, he needed to move to the PDC. So just another element of that transition between the two organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people, they did ridicule him, and not ridicule Glen particularly, but they did kind of try to diminish his achievements there and say, well, it's because he had a lack of competition in the BDO. I think we all would agree that maybe the BDO are not as strong, certainly, as they were, say, a decade ago. But Glen still beat some top players to win those titles, and he still performed superbly well to win them. And he's proven now in the PDC, reaching 3 major TV semi-finals, winning a couple of Pro Tours. He's top of the Premier League. I think he's proven beyond any doubt that he's got the game to compete with the PDC's elite.
Neil, the modern-day darts player could oftentimes be defined as someone who's got a lot of bravado. You look at the people, Michael van Gerwen and Gerwin Price are the people that come to the lips first of all. A lot of bravado, very confident. It's quite refreshing to see a darts player perhaps talk about their more sensitive side of themselves. I mean, talking there about, being ridiculed for his association with the BDO, and, people digging him out saying, I could win a game of darts in a pub and it'd be the same level of the BDO. Quite refreshing to hear a bit of sensitivity from a darts player.
Yeah, it was just nice to hear a straight talking, honest interview without any bravado from just a very down to earth man, and he did touch on many sensitive areas, and he's obviously quite a thoughtful person. So as I say, I think it's probably the best interview that we've had on the show in my opinion, and that's not talking down anybody else's interviews, but just the points that he made and the way that he made them really struck me.
And Josh, I think that nature that we talk about there is probably what gives Glen the mountains of support that he gets. He is such a down to earth guy that everybody wants to see him do well.
Absolutely, he's a lovely guy. He's so respectful to all the players, and he's very popular. He's impossible to dislike. I mean, when he played Fallon Sherrock in the Premier League, of course, everyone was behind Fallon because of the occasion and the history of it. But to be fair, Glen still didn't get too much grief from the crowd, because you can't dislike the man. But if you follow him on social media as well, he's a fantastic follower. I mean, he's quite serious, Glen, on the hockey. He's quite old-fashioned, quite old school. But you see him on social media, him and Matthew Edgar, another PDC tour card holder, always engaging in banter on Twitter. And we saw Glen very active in our own Fantasy World Championship when he was up against Wayne Mardle. He was campaigning, canvassing for votes, and he was great fun on that. So there is a serious side to Glen's character, but there's also a very humorous side as well. And he's a great guy, and I'm really pleased to see him succeed in the PDC because he deserves it.
Absolutely. And Josh, finally, you ended the interview just talking to him about his ambitions for the rest of the season, whenever that may resume, of course. And he spoke very candidly about aiming for a top 10 place and a major PDC title.
Absolutely. I mean, I think top 16 is going to be a formality, really. I mean, he's number 18 now in the world. As Neil mentioned, at the moment he's gaining ground every week because players are losing money off their ranking and Glen isn't. I think he's certainly got the game to break into the top 10. And a major title, he's definitely got the game. We saw him get to 3 semi-finals and he came just unstuck, but he was close in a lot of those semi-finals. And I think he's taken his finishing up another level. His combinations have been superb. It could even be the Premier League that he breaks his duck, because when it resumed, he's going to be a real threat. And on current form, he's looking good for a top 4 spot. And you can tell he's really hungry, because he's made a great start to life in the PDC. And I think he's proven beyond any doubt what a class player he is. But I think it'll be even more vindication for him if he were to lift a major PDC title.
Okay, well, on behalf of all of us here on the Josh's Dartistry podcast, a huge thank you to Glen for taking the time to come and talk to Josh. You're always welcome on the show, Glen, and we wish you continued success for the rest of the season.
Hello, I'm John McDonald, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry, or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for all the latest news and insight into the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329 and leave us a message, and we may play it live on air. Now back to the show.
And you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Let's get some news. In the news. Josh, just as we had a little break there, we had some breaking news come through, didn't we? Now, I know you've had a little bit of a heads up on this, but it's just gone out on social media tonight. We've got some breaking news. Why don't you tell us about that, mate?
Yeah, very exciting news for all darts fans, John. As we mentioned, we haven't been out to see much live darts, but we've got some virtual darts and plenty of it coming out with the PDC Home Tour that's going to be launching on Friday. Now, we've seen the PDC over the last couple of weeks have done darts at home. I think there's been 2 different editions of that. But the PDC Home Tour is going to involve all 128 PDC Tour card holders.
Wow.
So fantastic news. It's going to be very similar to the PDC Darts at Home format, where it's going to be done via webcam or iPhone film, wherever. The action is going to be broadcast on PDC TV for free. So all PDC TV members, you don't have to pay anything. You can watch all the darts. And what it's going to be, it's going to be 32 nights consecutively, 32 nights of action, which is fantastic. And every night it's going to be 4 different players. So it's going to be all 128 players involved. It's going to be round-robin format on the night, so all 4 players play each other. And then what's going to happen, the winners of each 32 groups then progress to the last 32, and it'll be, I think, a knockout tournament from there. So I'm not quite sure how the groups are going to work, whether it'll be seeded or whether it'll be random or not, but it's going to be 128 tour card holders all playing live on PDC TV for you from their own living rooms.
Well, there you go, Neil. Breaking news, 128 players taking part in that. The PDC certainly not resting on their laurels during the lockdown, Neil.
No, great to see that they're being creative, and I think it'll be people will be very, very happy to have some live darts on their on their screens, because I think we've all been watching repeat after repeat after repeat, and now we're going to see some very good competitive darts.
Josh, this is all off the back of the staging of the PDC's Darts at Home competition, isn't it? That we've been watching.
Exactly, yeah. We saw 5 players playing in the first edition. We had Devon Peterson, Luke Humphreys, Chris Dobie, Ted Everton, Matthew Edgar. And last week, which we'll mention in a little while, was Nathan Aspinall, Steve Beaton, Stephen Bunton and Yella Klassen. So really entertaining. Dan Dawson providing the commentary, and I think Dan's going to still be on commentary. We always hear him on the Pro Tour and Euro Tour, so he's going to be there detailing all the action. So it's going to be great fun. I'm not quite sure if all 128 players will play, because it depends on their setup. We don't know. Some might not have boards at their home, so
some may have internet connections that are similar to yours, Josh.
Well, very, very true, John. I'm not gonna bite on that one. But we know some players are not full-time professionals. Some of the tour card holders. Some of them have other jobs, and some of them I know play at their local pubs. Usually, that's when they go to have a practice. So whether all 128 players will be able to compete is another matter. But all tour card holders are given the opportunity to take part. That's what the press release says from the PDC. So it remains to be seen if all of the 128 players will play. But I'm sure if it's feasible, they're all going to want to play, because I'm not quite sure if it's going to be a ranking event or not, but it's certainly great entertainment for us first and foremost, and also for the players. For when the actual darts does resume, it keeps them fresh and sharp.
Neil, when we get out of lockdown, and I am primarily talking about darts, but obviously this extends to other facets outside of darts. Do you think we'll see more of this online stuff? We've had a lot of it in sport. We've had a lot of it. You yourself, you do a lot of working from home and online meetings and stuff. Do you think it's going to change the world's attitude on how we operate and the things we can perhaps do online as opposed to in person?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not sure with sport. And as I say, I think it's great that people have been creative in terms of, the virtual F1 Grand Prix that we've had, and now, we've had some darts, and we're now going to get some, a bigger darts competition coming. But I think in the world of business, it will do, because I've been fortunate enough to work from home for a number of years now, but I think in my industry, what it's done is made it feasible that everybody can work from home. And when you consider some of the big companies are probably paying thousands and thousands of pounds for expensive desk space in capital cities like London and New York, I'm fairly certain that there's a business case there to get more people working at home permanently to save the big companies some money. So yes, that's just touching on sport and touching on business. There's a number of other things as well, but I think it will certainly make life different and in some ways more interesting going forward. Online quiz nights, I don't think we'd had too many of them, and we've had three from your good self in the past couple of weeks. So yeah, I think it will change.
I agree with you. Also, the way we podcast as well. We've done Skype shows before, we've done online shows before where we're not all in the same room. But the sort of stuff that I've been learning about the last few weeks with Neil mentions there, the quiz nights that I've been doing, it has made me realise that these kind of things are possible. Tonight I've got the sound box next to me, and the next podcast that we do, Josh, we could probably do a full Josh's Dartistry podcast with Challenge Josh and In the News and What Are the Odds and all the sections really, which is something that we've never even contemplated before.
No, exactly, and it's always good. We haven't done a main show for a while now due to the restrictions and the lockdown, so it would be good to be able to bring those more interactive features to the show even remotely. So yeah, there's certainly an option and an avenue we can explore, and it's good news. And
friend of the show, Jordan Harrison, he suggested maybe doing a live video cast, like just for a Q&A. Let some of the JDP fans send some questions in, and we could live stream from your Facebook page and do a little live stream Q&A session.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility, John. We're going to mention a little bit later on. Me and Neil had a charity game for the NHS over the weekend.
You say you're going to talk about that later on. Why don't we talk about that right now? Because the challenge went out on Twitter, and Josh, you accepted the challenge. Jordan and I commentated, and fans of the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page might have seen that go out live. The first live stream ever performed on the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page. And Neil, why don't you tell us what led to you issuing the challenge, and then we can talk about how it went.
So I actually played him on Good Friday, I think it was, and we had a real good seesaw match, which was fairly close and fairly enjoyable. And we'd obviously done it online, and it had worked quite well. Now, I'm working full time, so I've been unable to volunteer for any of the NHS voluntary roles that have been going, but I've been wanting to do something, so I thought a small donation was something that I could do, and I thought to add a bit of spice to it, I would challenge Josh to a rematch, with the condition that he would need to beat me for me to make the donation. So obviously I rolled over, did the right thing, and allowed him to win.
Josh, talk us through the game, mate. Obviously you had Jordan and I on commentary, which I know was distracting at times because we were throwing a few pelters in both of your direction. How did you cope with the commentary, and just tell us about the game? I'm sure you've got the stats in front of you as well, haven't you?
Well, I haven't actually, but I do remember roughly the stats. I've got to say, John, I've never been so nervous for a game of darts in my entire life. Not only were we having you commentating, we were also, I think you mentioned at one point, I think we had up to 68 people watching. That
Absolutely.
Soon dropped after a couple of 22s. But yeah, it was quite surreal. It was good fun, to be fair. I mean, Neil outscored me. I won in 2-1. But Neil outscored me for large periods. I think in one leg, Neil went 100, 1-2, 1-3-8 back to back. It was great scoring, but he usually is quite solid on the doubles. He missed quite a lot of doubles, and I finished pretty well, to be fair, but my scoring wasn't great. So on another day, Neil would have won out won that quite comfortably. But yeah, I'll take the win, certainly.
Many congratulations, Josh. You did win the game. Well done. Neil, you lost, unfortunately. I know you said you'd done the gracious thing and the right thing to do in terms of the donation to the charity. So well done for the donation to the charity. But not the first time that Josh has handed you a pasting on the dartboard, Neil.
It isn't, but let's put things into perspective a little bit. He's had a dartboard. How long have you had a dartboard, Josh? And you've been...
I've been playing quite a lot over the last couple of weeks, Neil, but I think
No. My question was, how long have you had a dartboard?
About 5-6 years.
Exactly, and mine's been up about 5 or 6 days. So let's just bear that in mind for when we reconvene our battle.
Neil, at the start of the game, when Jordan and I was commentating, I asked you to bring us the odds, and Josh was a heavily backed favourite at the start.
He was, and as I say, he's someone that has really been close to the game of darts over recent years. He's had his dartboard for 5 or 6 years. He's probably got a cracking set of darts, whereas I've got some plastic ones that I got with my with my dartboard. So, rightly so, he was installed as favourite, as he will be going forward.
Okay. Well, listen, well done to both of you. I thought it was great fun. It was something new and innovative that we've never done on the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page before. So keep your eyes on the Josh's Dartistry Facebook page. I'm sure we'll do some more live streaming, video streaming, that kind of thing as we go through the lockdown. But Josh, you and Neil were not the only ones to be playing online. Obviously, we've been talking about already the PDC Darts at Home competition, but we had two old foes lock horns and go head to head last week, didn't we? And they were looking to raise a lot of money for charity as well.
Yeah, two darting legends, John. 21 world titles between them. Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor. It was probably a slightly better standard than me and Neil.
There we go. We haven't heard this in a while, Neil. Raymond van Barneveld. Did you tear up, Josh? Did you get a bit emotional seeing him on prime time again?
No, jokes aside, though, it was the first time they'd met, Barney and Taylor, since 2017. But despite the fact it was on a Nexus soft tip board, so it wasn't even steel tip, it was still brilliant entertainment to see them renew their rivalry. We had Stuart Pike and Wayne Marlow, the Sky Sports duo, on commentary. The soft tip boards, they are bigger targets, as we've mentioned in the previous show. The trebles and doubles are bigger. And the key difference really is the bullseye and the outer ball both count for 50. So all the players, Barney and Taylor, were both often leaving the ball and going for the ball because it was a bigger target. So the standard was brilliant. I think Barney averaged 119, Taylor 118. It looked like Phil was going to win. He was 6-3 up. But Barney came back really well, missed double 12 for a 9-darter in the penultimate leg and won with a 12-darter in the decider. But it was a great game. And the most important thing, John, it was £15,000 raised for charity in the fight against coronavirus.
Yeah, I think the obviously the money they raised for the coronavirus thing was fantastic. The standard was up there with some of the best darts that we've seen recently, without a shadow of a doubt. They've both still got it, and I want to give a little nod to the Peter Wright interview that took place recently. He mentioned both of them and said that he would fancy both of them to still be competing for titles if they were still involved. Josh,
he did. Yeah, Peter's got a lot of respect for Phil and Raymond. He was very close with Raymond, and I think we saw when he played Phil at the match play in Phil's last year, Peter was even more emotional than Phil, I think, when Phil lifted the title. So nice words from Peter. I mean, I'm a huge Raymond fan. Whether it be winning majors for the next decade, as Peter said, I'm not too sure, just because I think it's a massive arse now. I think Ray's still got the game. It's whether he's got the consistency over a tournament, and I think the same applies to Phil. The new breed of player now, they're fearless and they don't care about reputations, and whoever's standing in their way, they just want to demolish. So I think it'll be tough for Phil and Ray, but they're both terrific players. As you mentioned, John, I know that the targets were bigger, so the averages were maybe a little bit inflated, but they've still got the game, that's for sure.
Okay, yeah, we enjoyed that one. That was good fun, and hopefully we can see some more classic matches perhaps being put on. Maybe some other players gone by. I know Neil would probably like to see John Lowe taking part in something like that, but who knows? We'll keep our eyes on that and see if there's any more of those planned. Josh, we've also got Premier League news, haven't we, with regards to a revised schedule. Do you want to let people know about that?
Yeah, a lot of postponements and rescheduling over the last week or so, John. So all May's Premier League events in Glasgow, Leeds and London have been rescheduled. The PDC have announced a revised schedule. Whether that'll be changed over the coming weeks or months, who knows? But they're planning to resume the Premier League on July the 30th in Birmingham and conclude it on October the 15th in Sheffield, which will, I presume, be finals night. And the PDC have also announced the World Series Oceanic events in Australia and New Zealand have also been postponed, but they've been moved to 2021, so they won't be held this year. We mentioned that some events were going to inevitably have to be sacrificed because of this pandemic. I mean, the backlog would have been just too much. It'd been too congested. So the World Series events that are non-ranked, it makes sense for them to be sacrificed and moved to 2021.
It's incredible, really, when you look at the outstanding fixtures still to be played in the Premier League. I'm just looking down the list here, Josh. Birmingham, Belfast, London, Leeds, Berlin, Rotterdam, Glasgow, Manchester, Newcastle, Sheffield. There's 10 dates there still to be completed.
Well, yeah, we've only had 6 weeks of action, John, and the Premier League usually ends in May. But as it stands, it's going to kind of collide with other major tournaments like the World Match Play and World Grand Prix. So it's very tough for the PDC logistically, but the Premier League is still one of the most exciting tournaments on the calendar. And I think the fact that they've started it now, it'll be a real shame for it to be cancelled. So they're going to try their very best to fulfil it. And I hope for the players' sake and the fans' sake that we can see the Premier League finish.
Yeah, we'd like to see the conclusion of the Premier League. When I say the words conclusion of the Premier League, Neil's ears do prick up. We're not talking about Liverpool now. We're talking about the darts. But I'm sure, as Josh says, that will be completed. Josh, you touched on it a moment ago. Just fill us in a bit more about the darts at home last Wednesday. Nathan Aspinall competing and winning that second staging.
Yeah, the second week, John, it was a really good lineup, actually. Nathan Aspinall, Premier League star, former UK Open champion. He was up against 3 former BDO World Champions in Jelle Klassen, Steve Beaton and Stephen Bunting. Now, Aspinall won his first 2 games against Bunting and Beaton, then lost to Jelle Klassen, who finished superbly throughout the night. I think he had 6 ton-plus finishes in 2 games, Jelle. Jelle also got the 2 wins, but just lost out to Nathan Aspinall on legs difference. Steve Beaton and Stephen Bunting got 1 win apiece, Bunting finishing bottom of the pile. But ironically, if he'd have beaten Beaton in the last game, Bunting would have won it. So he went from possibly winning it to finishing bottom.
Yeah, good performance there from Nathan. And again, it was entertaining viewing while we're all on lockdown. That was a really good initiative from the PDC. Got some really good feedback on social media about that. So well done to the PDC. Josh, in times of as such that we find ourselves in at the moment, obviously people's health is at the forefront of people's minds. But away from the coronavirus, we had news last week, Barry Hearn suffering a minor heart attack last weekend. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, it came to light early last week, John. I think Eddie Hearn released a statement on Twitter saying that his dad, Barry, had been taken in over the weekend with a minor heart attack. He praised the amazing work of the NHS. Of course, at the moment, the praise they're receiving is completely deserved. What they're doing is fantastic. And Eddie was full of praise for the way they've dealt with Barry. And fortunately now, Barry is at home and recovering well. He's in good spirits. We've been very active still on social media and organising this PDC Darts at Home tour. So he's still working tirelessly as he always does. But hopefully now he rests up and heeds the warning for his health, because we all want to see Barry fit and well.
Yeah, Neil, good news that he appears to be on the mend. PDC Darts needs Barry Hearn, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. He's obviously been pivotal in darts. I think his energy and his work rate are to be admired. And whilst this was only a recent problem that Barry had, I've seen him very active since then. So he's clearly a workaholic, loves his job, and I wish him well for the future.
Josh, while we talk about the chairman of the PDC, any update on a possible name for the chairmanship of the BDO?
No, I've heard no updates, John. And I think it's probably not helped by the fact that the lockdown at the moment, they can't really have any. Well, they can have discussions, but I would imagine they will look to appoint a new chairman very soon when we come out of lockdown. But I've heard nothing, no concrete information or speculation really about the potential new chairman.
Okay, let's move it on then. Some more online darts taking place, and Josh, Modus Darts Management have been very busy, haven't they?
Yeah, last week they introduced the Icons of Darts, which was 6 players playing over the course of 6 days. Each player got a day off on each day, and it was just a league phase. So they're all playing each other in a round-robin format every day. The 6 players were Vessel Nyman, David Evans, Andy Jenkins, Paul Nicholson, Raymond van Barneveld and Mark Webster. And David Evans and Vessel Nyman both finished on the same points, but it was David Evans who just came out on top on legs difference. And this week, Modus are taking it up a notch, because as well as introducing the Icons of Darts for a second week, they're also doing a night at the darts, which is an additional league phase in the evening, because in the first week, the darts was taking place in the afternoon, from 11 o'clock till about 4 in the afternoon. We've still got the afternoon session, but now we've got an evening session with more players, including Martin Adams, Scott Mitchell, which is great fun. Also, Aaron Monk and Jason Askew are playing in the afternoons. And we've got Chris Mason and Mark Webster on commentary. So great initiative from Modus and more live darts for us to watch.
Well, there you go. Nobody can complain about a lack of darts, despite the lockdown we're in. There's plenty going on there. Can we bet on any of these, Neil? I don't know if you've managed to get online and have a look at any of the odds. We won't have an official what are the odds section, but Josh, Neil, do you know if you can bet on any of these tournaments?
Yeah, you can. You can bet on these Modus. Yeah, I mean, they were initially last week just streamed on betting websites like Bet365, Unibet, Paddy Power, for example. But now the stream is available free to watch on Dart Shop TV, which I've been watching on YouTube, which has been good fun. And Barney's won 3 out of 4 games tonight, so I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, so just looking at Sky Bet, there are...
oh, Neil, do you want your jingle?
odds.
Do you want your jingle?
We can do, yeah.
All right, let's do your jingle. Here we go.
Cool, what are the odds?
Allow me to hand you over to resident odds checker, Mr. Neil Connor.
Thank you, John. So just having a quick look on Sky Bet. You can get odds on the Modus icons of darts. So there's various markets. There are the match markets, the head-to-head markets, and then you've got some special odds for players to win every match. So if you think Aaron Monk will win all 4 of his matches on Wednesday, it's 9-2. If you think Jared Cole would win all of his 4 matches on Wednesday, it's 100-1. So looking at the tournament winner outright, Aaron Monk 7-4, Jason Askew 2-1, Andy Jenkins 7-2, Robert Collins 11-2, and Jared Cole 10-1. Also noticed as well on Sky Bet they're doing odds for the Czech Premier League, and that will take place. There'll be 5 matches tomorrow evening in the Czech Premier League for those that are interested and would like a bet.
Okay, well done. Thank you, Neil. Enjoyed that. Now, if you've got any money burning in your pocket and you want to have a bet, hopefully Neil's given you some good advice there. And as ever on the Josh's Dartistry, we remind you to gamble responsibly. And when the fun stops, stop.
Cool, what are the odds?
You're listening to Josh's Dartistry. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook by going to the Josh's Dartistry page. You can follow us on Twitter at Josh's Dartistry or go to the website www.joshisdartistry.com for the latest news and insight to the world of darts. You can also leave us a comment or a question via our voicemail box. Just call 07739 738 329. Leave us a message and we may play it on air. Now back to the show.
Hi, this is John Lowe, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Welcome back to the show, Josh. Before we move on, we touched on the last episode of the Bounce Out. Your Fantasy World Championship was drawing towards a conclusion, and we had some good fun and some good chat on that. Tell us how that ended up, buddy.
Yeah, when we last recorded, John, we were down to the final 4, which was Eric Bristow against Ramy van Barneveld in a battle of 5-time world champions, and Wayne Mardle against Glen Durrant, friend of the show we just spoke to earlier on. So both quite contrasting encounters, I've got to say. We saw, just after we finished recording, Ray put a tweet out urging his followers to vote for Eric Bristow. He said he deserves a win. He's the ultimate character of darts. Please vote for Eric. And the public did oblige. It was quite a close encounter, but Eric came out on top with 55% of the votes.
Who did you vote for in that tie, Josh?
I didn't vote because I set the poll up and I'm not allowed to vote.
Impartiality. Good, I like that. Professional from you. Well done.
No, it's not enforced. If I could have done, I'd have voted for Barney, John. But it's my own poll. I can't vote on my own poll.
Hang on, don't you have the Josh's Dartistry account and then your own account as well?
Yeah, but morally it's wrong, isn't it, to vote? So I didn't vote.
Fair enough. Okay, sorry, buddy. Take it away.
Yeah, so we saw Eric come out on top with 55% of the vote, and then it was Wayne Mardle against Glen Durrant. And Glen secured an early lead as he urged his followers to back him and vote Duzzer and get the Duzzer Massive into the final. But Wayne, whether he was doing a bit of gardening or a bit of housework, he wasn't on Twitter until about 6 o'clock, 2 hours to go, and all of a sudden he went into a mass panic urged his followers to get behind Team Mardle, and we saw over 2,000 votes in the space of an hour. It went absolutely crazy. Him and Glenn were exchanging banter on social media. It was brilliant fun, and Wayne Mardle came out on top to meet Eric Bristow in the final, and it was quite fitting, really. I didn't set it up with this intention, but the final fell on the second anniversary of Eric's passing. So it was quite poignant, really. And Wayne, I think he's mentioned in previous interviews, Eric Bristow was his darting idol. So he was urging his followers to vote for Eric, and they rightfully did so. And Eric came out on top with 81% of the votes. I mean, Phil Taylor, without doubt, the most successful dart player of all time. But Eric Bristow, one of the most popular and possibly one of the most influential of all time. And he was a rightful winner of our very first Fantasy World Championship.
Neil, as Josh mentioned there, Eric took the win, and it was probably the right thing, the anniversary of his passing. But it just goes to show, doesn't it? It did snowball, this thing, and we've seen it on different occasions with different things. But people do like to get involved and feel part of a community and get involved in these sort of online polls.
Yeah, very much so. I think, for all the fans out there, they seem to really enjoy it, and we got quite a few of the players involved as well. And it was, again, in difficult times where there's obviously not much going on, I think it's a bit of welcome relief, and great to see people embrace it like they did.
Okay, well done, Josh. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you have been working hard to try and create content for your website. Check out www.joshesdartistry.com for all your latest darts content. Check us out on Twitter @JoshesDartistry is the handle. In terms of the podcast, you can find us on all your favourite podcast providers, whether that's Spotify, Stitcher, Castbox, Apple Podcast, of course. There's always a YouTube version that goes up, so that's how you can follow the show. Please do tell your friends and family if you know anyone who's into darts, or even if they're not into darts and they just want something different and fresh to listen to. Give us a like, give us a recommendation, spread the word of the Josh's Dartistry podcast. You're listening to the Josh's Dartistry podcast. Don't forget you can check us out on Facebook, the Josh's Dartistry page. You can also follow us on Twitter @Josh's Dartistry. And you can also go to our website, www.joshesdartistry.com, for all the latest news, blogs and information on the world of darts. Don't forget you can also call us and leave us a message on our voicemail box. That's 07739 738 329. That's 07739 738 329. Call our voicemail box, leave us a message, leave us a question, and we may play it on the show. Now back to the show.
Hi, I'm Andy Hamilton, and you're listening to Josh's Dartistry.
Okay, before we finish this episode of The Bounce Out, we've had some questions coming in from social media. This is Josh's Twitter chatter. Okay, Josh, you put out a tweet earlier on the Josh's Dartistry Twitter page asking if anyone's got any questions for the podcast this evening. Ben Hudd, friend of the show, his first question was, is Challenge Josh back? We've mentioned earlier that we can probably now do a full show online. So look ahead to the next show. Ben, keep your ears open. We'll do a full show soon. And Challenge Josh will be back because Neil will be chomping at the bit, especially after, Neil, you lost to Josh in a virtual darts game. I'm sure an episode of Challenge Josh will give you plenty of ammunition, Neil.
Yeah, I think regardless of what the next recording is, I think we'll have Challenge Josh.
There we go. How's that make you feel, Josh?
Well, I was quite enjoying this lockdown up until then, John, but there we go.
Okay, so that's something to look forward to. Ben also followed it up with another question, Josh. Which countries should be added to the European Tour calendar in the near future? Actually, there's a couple of questions there, so let's go with that one first. Which countries do you think should be added to the European Tour calendar in the near future? The calendar is a little bit difficult to discuss, obviously, in present climate, because we are a bit short of time now. But going forward, any countries you'd like to see added?
Well, I'm glad they've added Hungary this year because darts is booming there. So they were due to go to Budapest. Obviously, that's going to be rescheduled, we believe. There's a couple of suggestions from some of my followers, actually, who mentioned Spain and Benidorm. They used to play some Pro Tour events in Spain and Benidorm. And Spain's obviously a country where you've got quite a number of talented players on the PDC circuit. I think maybe Italy could be one because we've seen at the World Cup of Darts, they lost last year in the first round to Canada. They've been in it for a couple of years now, Italy. But the standard is really improving over there and it's becoming far more popular. And obviously it'll be fantastic, wouldn't it, to have a PDC event in Rome or Milan or something. So maybe Spain or Italy would be my two choices there.
I think Poland is an emerging nation as well, isn't it, in European darts?
Absolutely. We've got Krzysztof Ratajski as well into the top 25 of the PDC. We've got Krzysztof Kulik and Titus Kanik as well. 3 talented Polish players off the top of my head I can think of. So that's certainly a possible destination as well. I think it's really growing in Eastern Europe. We've gone to Prague as well. Over the last couple of years, it's becoming far more popular in the Czech Republic, where we've got Karol Sedlacek now, the first Czech Republic PDC tour card holder. So a lot of growth in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I'm sure that's something that Barry, Hearn and co will be looking at for the future. Josh, this one's to you as well. What do you make of Wessel Nijman's dominance in the Modus streamed events? You would have had your eye on that more than Neil and I. Any comment on Wessel Nijman's achievements?
Yeah, really, really impressed with Wessel. I must admit, I didn't know a great deal about him before he played in these events. I know he'd won a couple of development tour titles, but we hadn't seen him in any televised events. He's taken to the icon of darts, live league like a duck to water. He's been so impressive. I think he won the first 2 league phases. As I mentioned earlier, he just lost out on legs difference on the overall weekly table to David Evans. But he kicked off last night with 4 wins from 4, beating Martin Adams, Barney, Richie Edhouse and Evans. He only won 1 match tonight, so a little bit of a disappointment for him, but he's only 19 years old. He's got a really good action, a real promising talent. We've got so many good Dutch players coming through now, and Wessel's the latest on a long list, so really excited to see his progress over the next couple of years because he's really impressed here.
Neil, we're always excited to get new names coming through. Leighton Bennett was probably the name on most people's lips last year, but it could be that we've got another youngster to keep an eye on in terms of Wessel Nijman.
Yeah, it certainly looks that way, and as Josh said, it's just one in a long line of players that are coming out of the Netherlands at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how he progresses.
Okay, let's move on. Jenny Merter's been in contact. She says, realistically, is the Premier League actually going to get finished this year? I know they've rescheduled, as we mentioned earlier. We mentioned the rescheduled dates. But with the need to attend ranking events, will the players see it as a worthy use of their time and energy? It's a very good point, Josh. What do you make of that?
It's a very good question because, as we've mentioned, the Premier League is not ranked. And a lot of the players are going to be focusing on their world ranking. And I know the Pro Tours and European Tours may not have the pedigree or the glamour of the Premier League, but essentially the players, if they've been missing out on prize money, they're going to want to get their ranking prize money under wraps. But the Premier League is such a prestigious title. I think barring the World Championship and perhaps the World Match Play, the Premier League is next on the list of major titles. I mean, it's kind of like an unofficial triple crown in the PDC. It's the Premier League, the World Championship and the World Match Play. So I think the players are still going to be desperate to try and win the Premier League, particularly those higher up in the table. Maybe those who are lower down. We sometimes see in the Premier League, because it's such a long phase, usually with 4 or 5 weeks to go, there becomes players who maybe kind of are out of contention. So maybe they will switch their attention to the ranking event.
As a Tottenham Hotspur fan, I can fully understand that mentality.
I didn't want to mention it, John, but you make a very good point. But, I mean, I think the Premier League will realistically be finished. It's going to be tough logistically, but the PDC are committed to try and finish in that. It's one of the main events on Sky Sports, and hopefully we all hope that it gets finished because it would be a shame, particularly for those people like Glen Durrant who started so well, Nathan Aspinall on debut as well. I really do hope it gets finished, but it's going to be tough. I mentioned it with Glen Durrant in the interview. There's going to be so many events rescheduled. It's going to be such a congested second half of the season, particularly the older players. They're going to have to really manage their schedule and pick and choose events because otherwise they're going to be burnt out by the time the World Championship comes around.
Okay, well, there you go. There's Josh's thoughts. Hopefully we will get completion, but go on, Neil, go on.
Just on that as well. There's a hell of a lot of prize money available for the Premier League. So I think the whole purse is at 825,000. Yeah. And even if you're the 9th place finisher, it's 35,000 up to 250,000 for the winner. So I'm sure opportunities to win that sort of money don't come along every week. So I'm sure there will be people keen to see the end of it. And also, I suspect that the PDC will want to see the end of it because there'll be Sky Television commitments, and they've probably received some money up front for that, and they'll be keen to honour it. So that they don't lose out on the TV money as well.
Yeah, again, it's the same thing with the football discussions that people are having. Money's been paid, and the broadcaster want the product that they've paid for.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move on. Woody Rudd on Twitter, who's been very complimentary of the podcast. They keep up the good work. The podcast is brilliant. Thank you, Woody. Always nice to get some positive feedback. Woody says, with the ever increasing rise of darts popularity, and now the Nexus soft tip board becoming widely available and the impressive technology it offers, do you think there'll ever be a UK tour with big prize money? Better boards and equipment could mean more people try soft tip. Do you envisage a soft tip tour at all, Josh, in this country? I know it's probably a bit more widely popular abroad, particularly over around Asia, but a UK soft tip tour. What do you think?
It's certainly feasible, John. I mean, if you'd have asked me that 3-4 months ago, I probably would have disagreed. But I think we are on lockdown now, and I know the Nexus boards have been so popular because it allowed people to engage online, play virtually. It's a real community there. We mentioned, so I think it's certainly a possibility. And I think the fact that we saw Barney and Taylor playing on a soft tip board would have only enhanced its popularity. We saw Phil playing in a few soft tip events in Asia a couple of years ago. Barney had actually said that he would maybe consider playing some soft tip events and competitively. So I think if you have the figureheads like Taylor and Barney playing and kind of leading the way, who knows, it could lead to something in the UK. But I think it's so popular in Asia at the moment, it's tough to envisage a separate tour in the UK. But if the money's there and the interest is there, it's certainly a possibility.
The soft tip game does intrigue me. Obviously, we've spoken about it tonight with Barney and Taylor taking part in that match. It does intrigue me, but I don't know if there would be enough demand going forward when things return. You know, I'm doing finger quotes now, to normal. I don't know if the demand is. To me, it's almost like would we be able to run a Premier League 5-a-side competition alongside an 11-a-side competition? Would there be the interest for that for a slightly different format? But then you look at other things.
There are sometimes variations of a product have worked. So if you look at cricket, we had the test matches and one-day cricket were the tried and trusted formats. 2020 was introduced, and I think people were a bit sceptical. Now everyone loves the 2020 game. And now we've got this 100-ball cricket coming. Again, people are sceptical, including myself, on that. But based on how 2020 has gone, you just never know, do you?
Also, I think the fact that it was Barney and Taylor, two players who maybe retired, maybe that could be an avenue to explore. Some of the players, the legends of the past, perhaps coming back and playing, that would maybe generate more interest. I mean, we've had a League of Legends before, which has been steel tip. But if the likes of, I don't know, your Colin Lloyds, your John Lowe's, your Keith Dellers, maybe if some of the legends played in the soft tip format, maybe that would generate more interest.
Okay, well, there you go. It is a distinct possibility. After lockdown, if there's enough interest been generated from all this, you never know. It may happen. Okay, well, that is all of your questions for this episode. Thanks for sending them in. Always nice to receive some questions from you guys for us to have a chat. That was Josh's Twitter chatter. Okay, guys, that brings us nicely to the end of the show. Enjoyed that. Managed to get a lot more covered than I thought we would. You would think that, the fact that we're all in lockdown and there's no televised darts being thrown, Josh, that there wouldn't be much to discuss, but that couldn't be further from the truth, could it?
Although we haven't seen any competitive ranking PDC events, there's still plenty of darts going on. The PDC and Modus, we mentioned, doing some great work to try and entertain us all. So looking forward to more darts in the coming weeks.
Yeah, Neil, the world of darts continues to entertain despite the fact we are on lockdown.
Indeed, and I think as we might have touched on in the last episode, I think people, whilst this is a terrible period of life for people. It is also bringing out the best of some people in terms of creativity and new ideas. So looking on the bright side, it's been great from that perspective.
Okay, as I said on the last show, I always feel daft asking this question at the moment, but I'm going to do it regardless. Neil, plans for the rest of the week?
Might pop to the shed or to the garden. No, I've got busy days Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then at the weekend I'm just looking around the house just to see what else I can do. Really, I'm running out of things that I'm capable of doing. So who knows? Maybe I'll get stuck into a box set.
Well, I've been trying to keep myself busy on Facebook predominantly, doing some live streaming. As you know, I do the quiz now on a Friday night at 7:30. But get between 600 and 700 people joining in with the quiz, which is really good. Nice to sort of get, a lot of it's friends and family. But I've started a new page on Facebook. Facebook.com/The Dean Stream. I've got about 300 people following me on there, 700 people doing my quiz. And it's just been nice to, interact. And I've learned a lot more about the technology in terms of being able to broadcast, whether it's video feeds or podcasts and stuff like that. So I've kept myself busy and quite enjoyed it. Josh, any more content planned for the website this week? Got any features or articles or anything you're working on?
Yeah, still plenty that's me going on. We're going to have the podcast going live probably tomorrow, which will be Wednesday, and then I'm going to, because it was such a great interview with Glen Durrant, I'm going to do 2 separate features with Glen. One talking about his life in the PDC and how he's adjusted, and then one specifically on the BDO. So that's going to be going out over the next few days. Maybe another top 10 article there, really popular with people and they seem to engage. I'm closing in now on my website on 3 million all-time views.
Wow.
I'm closing in, so hopefully over the weekend I might well achieve that. So that's something to look forward to.
Okay, good. Well, we look forward to that. Gentlemen, thank you for your time this evening. Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, John. Always a pleasure.
And I'm John, and we'll see you next time.
Dartistry, Josh Dartistry.